Jax had never expected life on Astra Prime to be this strange. When he had trained to become a knight back on Earth, he imagined himself riding majestic mechanical horses, defending distant colonies from dangerous invaders, or dueling space pirates with gleaming swords. Instead, he was chasing tiny squeaky creatures that darted under furniture and over shelves in his shared apartment. "Some knight you are," his roommate Ilara said from the kitchen, her voice full of amusement. She held a plate of steaming golden eggs in her hands. "Terrible at catching mice. Absolutely hopeless." Jax groaned, rubbing the back of his neck under the weight of his slightly scratched helmet. He had spent the last hour trying to corner a critter that was smaller than his palm and faster than any hover drone he had ever piloted. He had set traps, tried high-tech nets, and even attempted a stealth approach, which had ended with him tripping over a chair and knocking over a stack of containers. "I'm doing my best," Jax muttered, but he could not hide the faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. He knew Ilara was enjoying every moment of this. Ilara's eyes sparkled as she leaned against the counter, her alien features sharp and elegant in the soft kitchen light. She was considered a master chef on Astra Prime, famous across multiple colonies for her bio-enhanced recipes, particularly her legendary eggs that could glow faintly when perfectly cooked. "Doing your best isn't enough. That mouse is laughing at you," she teased. Jax straightened his back, puffing his chest in mock pride. "Well, your eggs are legendary," he said, pointing to the golden plate she held. "Maybe if I eat enough of them, I'll catch mice like a hero." Ilara laughed, the sound musical and bright, echoing slightly against the metal walls of their apartment. "Maybe. Or maybe you'll just get fat before you get good at it." Despite the teasing, there was warmth in their interactions, a comfort that Jax had not expected when he first arrived at Astra Prime. This colony was meant to be a hub of human-alien cooperation, a shining example of interstellar diplomacy and innovation. Humans were still newcomers here, their presence only a few decades old, but already they were being tested by the quirks of alien life. And for Jax, a human knight without any real battlefield experience in this strange galaxy, life was proving to be full of unexpected lessons. Jax crouched beside the edge of the counter, peering under it as the tiny critter, a furred creature no bigger than a toaster, scurried across the floor. Its eyes gleamed with curiosity, or maybe mischief, and it twitched its whiskers at him. Jax whispered, "I will get you, little guy. You can run, but you can't hide forever." The critter twitched again and darted toward the open living area, moving faster than Jax could follow. He sprang to his feet, making a sudden lunge, but it was gone, slipping through the tiniest crack beneath a cabinet. He landed awkwardly on one knee, feeling the sting of defeat. Ilara shook her head, sighing in exaggerated disappointment. "Truly, humanity has conquered stars, made machines that can think, and mapped uncharted planets," she said, waving a hand dramatically. "And yet you can't catch a mouse." Jax stood and crossed his arms, smiling despite himself. "Well, maybe humans weren't meant to chase mice. Maybe we're meant to catch bigger things, like stars, or danger, or alien invasions." Ilara's laugh rang out again. She picked up one of her golden eggs and held it out to him. "Then at least eat first. You'll need strength for your heroics, or your next attempt at mouse catching." Jax took the egg, savoring the warmth. There was something magical about it, not just in taste, but in feeling, as if it carried a kind of energy only Ilara could produce. He had read about humans thriving because of ingenuity, curiosity, and teamwork, but now he understood another important lesson. Survival in a new world required a little humor and a lot of patience. Just as he was about to take another bite, a sudden clatter sounded from the storage closet. The critter had returned, this time knocking over containers of supplies as it darted toward the hallway. Jax dropped his egg onto a plate, quickly springing into action. "Finally! A chance!" he shouted, adrenaline flooding him. He charged after it, not with armor and sword as he might have imagined on Earth, but with a small net he had rigged from a flexible alloy, designed specifically for creatures of this size. The critter, aware of him, zigzagged wildly, weaving through obstacles as if playing a game. Jack stumbled over a pile of empty crates but refused to give up. He could almost hear Ilara's teasing voice in his mind, pushing him onward. For 10 minutes, the chase continued, each second filled with tension, humor, and determination. Jax realized that this tiny creature was teaching him something valuable about human nature: persistence. Humans were not always the fastest or strongest, but they never gave up, and they adapted quickly. He adjusted his net, predicting the critter's path, and finally, with a swift but careful motion, he managed to catch it. He held it gently in his hands, feeling the rapid heartbeat of the little animal. Triumph surged through him. He turned toward Ilara, expecting applause, but instead she stood with her arms crossed, a sly smile on her face. "Well," she said slowly, "it only took you an hour, 2 bruises, and a broken crate. But congratulations, you caught it." Jax grinned, holding the critter out like a knight presenting a trophy. "Victory!" Ilara rolled her eyes but reached out to pat him on the shoulder. "You're terrible at catching mice," she said, but her voice carried warmth. "But I admit, that was impressive." Jax placed the critter in a small, safe enclosure and looked around the apartment. It was cluttered with both human and alien items, gadgets, utensils, containers, and plants that glowed faintly under artificial light. This strange mixture of life and culture made him feel at home, even in a galaxy so far from Earth. As he returned to the kitchen, Ilara handed him another egg. "Eat. You'll need strength for tomorrow. Who knows what other challenges this colony has in store for you?" Jax smiled, realizing that this was exactly what life on Astra Prime would be: unpredictable, challenging, and full of small victories. Humans were new here, but he could already see that their determination, humor, and resilience would set them apart. He bit into the egg, savoring the warmth and energy it offered. Outside, the city lights of Astra Prime blinked in the night. Starships glided silently across the sky, carrying diplomats, traders, and explorers. Somewhere among them, humans were beginning to earn their place. And Jax, a knight who could barely catch a mouse, felt a spark of pride. Maybe, just maybe, humans could become legends in this galaxy, not through sheer strength, but through heart, ingenuity, and persistence. Ilara watched him with a soft smile, then turned back to her cooking. "Some knight you are," she muttered under her breath. "But I think he might just survive this place." And for the first time since he arrived, Jax laughed. Not at himself, but at the adventure that lay ahead. The morning sun rose over Astra Prime, casting pale blue light across the colony. Jax woke to the gentle hum of life outside the apartment window. Hovering delivery drones, alien traders chatting in melodic tones, and humans moving quickly along the streets. Today, the city seemed alive with possibilities. He stretched, feeling a little sore from yesterday's chase after the tiny critter. His pride, however, was intact. He had finally caught something, even if it had been a mouse-sized creature. Breakfast awaited him in the kitchen, and Ilara was already at work. "Good morning, Knight of Astra Prime," she said without looking up. "You slept well, I hope?" Jax chuckled as he walked over. "Better than I expected. I think the little critter taught me more about persistence than any training back on Earth." Ilara turned with a mischievous smile. "Well, don't get too confident. This colony has surprises that even knights can't predict. And besides, persistence doesn't always help if you're out of luck." Jax shrugged. "Then I'll just make my own luck." He took one of her glowing golden eggs, savoring the warmth. The morning passed quietly, with Jax helping Alara clean and organize the apartment while exchanging playful banter. For a moment, everything seemed normal, almost peaceful. But Astra Prime had a way of testing newcomers, and the peace would not last long. By midday, alarms began to echo across the colony. A sharp, high-pitched signal cut through the usual background hum, sending everyone scrambling. Jax and Alara looked at each other, alarmed. "What is it this time?" Jax asked, standing quickly. Alara frowned. "I'm not sure, but the colony's control system is flashing warnings. Something is moving fast, and it's not human." The two of them rushed to the living room window and saw a strange sight. Across the city, tiny swarms of creatures were darting between buildings. They looked similar to the small critters Jax had battled yesterday, but there were many more of them. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Their movements were precise, almost intelligent, and they moved with a coordinated rhythm that made the colony's residents panic. "They're multiplying!" a human trader shouted from below. "They're everywhere!" Jax felt a surge of determination. This was bigger than a single mouse-like creature. This was a threat to the colony itself. He grabbed his utility belt, checking his tools, traps, nets, and a small portable containment unit. "Alara, we need to protect the apartment first," he said. "Then we can help the colony." Alara nodded, but her hands trembled slightly as she packed supplies. "I've never seen them like this. They're organized. It's almost like they're attacking on purpose." The creatures were fast. Within minutes, they had infiltrated nearby buildings, toppling storage containers, spilling food, and causing chaos. Humans and aliens alike scrambled to save their homes and belongings. Jax and Alara worked together, setting up temporary barricades and catching creatures wherever they could. Jax quickly realized that ordinary methods would not work. The critters were too clever, slipping through gaps in walls and floors. He needed a new strategy. He pulled out his datapad and began mapping the movements of the swarms. "They follow patterns," he said aloud. "Every swarm has a rhythm. If we predict it, we can control where they go." Alara raised an eyebrow. "You mean humans can outthink them?" "I think so," Jax replied confidently. "Humans survive not because we are the fastest or the strongest, but because we find solutions no one else thinks of. Let's use that." Together they began a plan. Jax would lead the swarms toward areas of the colony that could safely contain them, while Alara used her knowledge of food and bio-engineered scents to lure the creatures. She carefully crushed some of her glowing eggs, releasing a faint aroma the critters seemed unable to resist. It worked. The first swarm changed direction almost instantly, heading toward the bait. Jax set up a containment barrier, activating a small energy field that gently trapped the creatures without harming them. The colony watchers, humans and aliens alike, began to notice the methodical human effort and stopped panicking. "Look at that," Alara said in surprise. "You're amazing. Humans really can think outside the box." Jax smiled but did not relax. "It's not just me," he said. "It's what humans do. We adapt. We survive." Over the next few hours, the swarms kept coming. Some were clever enough to avoid the barriers, slipping into the streets or climbing buildings. Jax and Alara worked tirelessly, coordinating with neighbors and nearby colonists. Humans brought tools and makeshift traps. Aliens contributed unique energy fields and biomagnetic devices. Together, they formed a defense that slowly began to turn the tide. During a brief pause, Jax noticed a small group of children trapped in a courtyard, surrounded by a swarm. Without thinking, he sprinted toward them, his armor scraping against the pavement. Alara followed, using her egg scent to distract the creatures. Jax scooped the children into his arms, shielding them as he dashed to safety. When they were finally out of danger, one of the parents ran over, tears of relief in their eyes. "Thank you. You humans, you saved them." Jack smiled, brushing off the praise. We all saved them. Humans, aliens. We worked together and nothing can stop us. Ilara's eyes glimmered with pride. I knew humans were clever, she whispered, but seeing it in action, I understand now. You're not just lucky. You're remarkable. The day dragged on. The swarms seemed endless, but the humans and aliens refused to give up. Jax devised more complex traps, using energy fields, nets, and clever pathways to guide the creatures into containment zones. Each success brought a small victory, and morale across the colony began to rise. By late afternoon, most of the swarms had been captured or neutralized. Jax and Ilara stood together on a rooftop, watching the sun dip behind the distant skyscrapers. The city was damaged but intact. Humans and aliens had survived the day, not by brute strength, but through strategy, courage, and teamwork. Ilara turned to Jax, her expression softer now. You were right, she said. Humans do survive by thinking differently. You didn't just chase the creatures. You led everyone. You inspired them. Jack scratched the back of his neck, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. It wasn't just me, he said. It was all of us. Everyone who helped. Humans, aliens. We all make the colony strong. That's what makes us remarkable. Just then, a final swarm appeared on the horizon, larger than any before. Its movements were more organized, almost intelligent, and it glowed faintly under the evening sky. Jax's heart raced, but he did not panic. He looked at Ilara and saw the same determination in her eyes that he felt in his own. Another test, he said quietly, and we'll pass it, just like we did today. Humans don't run from challenges. We face them, and we win. Ilara nodded, her hands glowing faintly as she prepared another batch of egg scent to lure the swarm. Then let's show them what humans and aliens can do together. As the swarm moved closer, Jax tightened his grip on his tools. The colony watched in awe, ready to follow his lead. The tiny knight who could barely catch a mouse had become a symbol of hope, courage, and ingenuity. And somewhere deep inside, Jax realized something important. This was just the beginning. Humans had arrived on Astra Prime not to survive quietly, but to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. With a final glance at the city below, he whispered, "Let's do this." The swarm attacked, but for the first time, Jax and his fellow colonists were ready. The sun had set over Astra Prime, casting long shadows across the colony's streets. The tiny creatures that had swarmed the city earlier were mostly contained now, but their final wave loomed ominously on the horizon. This swarm was different, bigger, faster, and more intelligent. It moved in perfect coordination, as if it were aware of the humans' defenses and was testing them. Jax stood at the edge of the rooftop, surveying the city below. He could see the flickering lights of energy barriers and the subtle glow of bioscent traps Ilara had prepared. The colony had come together like never before. Humans, aliens, and hybrid teams worked side by side, repairing damage, setting up defenses, and guiding frightened residents to safety. Ilara joined him, her expression serious. "This is worse than anything I've seen," she said, her voice steady but tight. "They're learning from our actions. Each wave is smarter than the last." Jax nodded, already thinking ahead. "Then we need to be smarter too. Humans survive by thinking where others might fail. That's our advantage. Let's use it." He pulled out his datapad, which displayed the movement patterns of the swarms. He analyzed the paths, speeds, and tendencies of the creatures. "If we can predict their next move," he said, "we can guide them into the containment zones before they reach the colony center." Ilara frowned. "We'll need a lot of help. The colony alone isn't enough. If we fail, the city could be lost." Jax's eyes lit up with determination. Then we make allies. Not just aliens and humans, but anyone willing to fight with us. We're stronger together. By morning, Jax and Ilara had coordinated teams across the colony. Humans and aliens worked in unison, setting up traps, energy fields, and sound diversions to guide the swarm. Humans contributed ingenuity, building machines from scraps that could herd the creatures, while aliens added biological knowledge, creating repellents and lures tailored to the swarm's instincts. One team of engineers had built a network of flexible barriers that could change shape and height at a moment's notice. "It's like a living maze," Jax explained to Ilara. "If the swarm enters it, we control every turn they take." Ilara nodded. "And my sense will guide them into it. Between human brains and alien biology, they don't stand a chance." The first wave approached. The creatures moved like shadows, fast and precise. For a moment, panic rippled through the defenders, but Jax raised his hand. "Remember what we practiced. Work together, anticipate, adapt." The creatures moved into the maze as predicted. They tried to escape, but the flexible barriers adjusted instantly, closing paths and guiding them toward containment zones. Ilara released her glowing bio-scent along the correct routes, and the swarm followed obediently. Humans at key points used nets and energy fields to corral stragglers. It worked perfectly. The first wave was captured with minimal damage, and the defenders cheered, but the larger swarm still approached. Jax and Ilara moved to the city center, where the next confrontation would take place. Here, the swarm had already knocked over several structures, and chaos threatened to spread further. Jax assessed the situation quickly, noting weak points in the defenses and gaps in the barriers. "We'll need a new tactic," he said. Ilara tilted her head. "What are you thinking?" "We need to go vertical," Jax said. "The swarm moves in patterns on the ground. If we use the taller buildings, we can guide them into air traps and contain them before they reach the city center." With Ilara's help, teams climbed buildings, setting up nets and energy barriers at different levels. Humans rigged drones with small pulses to herd the swarm upward, while aliens used magnetic fields to prevent them from escaping the traps. The city became a coordinated machine of ingenuity and determination. As the larger swarm descended, Jax felt a surge of pride. Humans had arrived on Astra Prime as newcomers, yet here they were, leading a multi-species team with precision and courage. Each move they made inspired others, showing that humans were not just adaptable, but essential in critical situations. The swarm reacted unpredictably at first, but Jax had anticipated it. He called out adjustments, and humans and aliens followed instantly, reacting in unison. The creatures moved into the vertical traps, struggling but unable to escape the coordinated barriers. Ilara released her bio-scent impulses, keeping them moving exactly where she wanted. Finally, after hours of work, the last creatures were guided into containment zones. The city was battered, but the colony had survived. Humans and aliens cheered together, exhausted but triumphant. Jax and Ilara looked out over the city, their shoulders brushing as they took a moment to breathe. "We did it," Ilara said softly. "We actually did it." Jax smiled, though he felt the fatigue in his muscles. "Yes, but not just us. Everyone helped. Humans, aliens, everyone stepped up. That's what makes us strong. That's why humans survive." Ilara nodded, her usual teasing smile returning. "I suppose you humans aren't so terrible after all. Maybe a little heroic." Jax laughed. "I'll take it. But don't forget, your eggs helped too. Without them, the swarm would have been harder to guide." Ilara rolled her eyes but smiled. "Fine. I'll let the humans have a little credit. For now." The leaders of the colony approached them, offering thanks and praise. Jax realized that humans were no longer just observers in this galaxy. They were becoming contributors, teachers, and leaders. Their creativity, courage, and determination had made a difference, and the aliens were beginning to notice. But amid the relief, Jax also knew this was only the beginning. The swarm had been contained, but the creatures had not been studied enough to understand why they had attacked. Was this a natural occurrence, a result of human settlement, or something else entirely? Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll face it together," she said. "Humans and aliens, side by side. You've already shown what humans can do. Now let's see what else we can accomplish." Jax felt a thrill of excitement. He had arrived on Astra Prime thinking he would be a small part of the colony, perhaps a minor knight among many. But he had learned that humans had a way of standing out. Not through size, strength, or technology alone, but through persistence, creativity, and courage. As night fell over the city, humans and aliens gathered to repair damage and rebuild trust. Jax moved among them, offering encouragement, helping wherever he could, and quietly observing. He understood something now that he hadn't fully realized before. Survival was more than defeating enemies. It was about leadership, inspiration, and showing others the possibilities that came from working together. Ilara prepared another batch of her legendary eggs, the warm aroma filling the streets as she handed portions to exhausted humans and aliens alike. "Eat," she said, "and regain your strength. Tomorrow may bring another challenge." Jax took a bite, savoring the energy and warmth. He looked at the city, the buildings, the lights, and the people who had trusted him. He knew that humans had earned their place on Astra Prime, not through fear or intimidation, but through ingenuity, courage, and heart. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet confidence grew. Humans had proven they could lead, inspire, and survive where others might fail, and Jax, a knight who had struggled to catch a simple mouse, had become a symbol of human resilience and determination. He glanced at Ilara, who was smiling softly. "Some knight I am," he muttered under his breath, remembering her teasing. Ilara laughed, her voice carrying across the rooftops. "Some knight you are, but perhaps, just perhaps, one worth following." Jack smiled, feeling the truth in her words. Humanity had arrived on Astra Prime not just to survive, but to shine. And together, humans and aliens would face whatever challenges lay ahead, proving that courage, cleverness, and teamwork were more powerful than any weapon. Above them, the stars twinkled faintly, hinting at countless possibilities, unknown worlds, and adventures waiting to be claimed. Jax knew that this was just the start, and that humans would rise to meet the galaxy, one challenge at a time. The morning sky over Astra Prime was tinged with orange and pink as the colony recovered from the recent swarm attack. Buildings had been repaired, supplies restocked, and the streets were alive again with activity. But the feeling of victory was tempered by tension. Something deeper, more dangerous than the previous swarms, was stirring on the outskirts of the colony. Jax stood on a rooftop, his armor gleaming faintly in the dawn light. He scanned the horizon, eyes narrowing as he noticed unusual shadows moving among the outer ridges of the city. These were no ordinary creatures. Their forms were larger, almost mechanical in appearance, and their movements suggested intelligence and coordination far beyond anything Jax had faced before. Ilara approached, her expression serious. "The sensors picked up something last night," she said. "It's heading this way, faster than we can track easily." Jax clenched his fists. "Then we prepare. Humans survive by facing challenges, not avoiding them. Whatever this is, we meet it head-on." The colony leaders had gathered in the central plaza to discuss the threat. Humans, aliens, and hybrid teams worked together, devising plans, analyzing potential risks, and building new defensive systems. Jax and Alara were at the center of the effort, coordinating the human contribution, a combination of quick thinking, makeshift technology, and adaptive strategies. "This isn't like before," Jax told the council. "The swarm was small, predictable. Whatever is coming, it adapts. But humans have an advantage. They think differently. We improvise, we survive, and that's exactly what we'll do now." Ilara nodded. "We'll combine human ingenuity with alien science. Together, we can outsmart it." By midday, the threat was visible. Across the skyline, a massive formation of creatures advanced, glinting in the sunlight. Their numbers were staggering, and their size was intimidating. The colony's residents watched in fear, unsure if they could withstand this new menace. But Jax stepped forward, calm and confident. "Everyone," he called, "remember what we did before. Humans survive because we adapt. We will lead, we will coordinate, and we will protect this colony. Follow my lead." Teams mobilized immediately. Humans constructed intricate energy barriers, guided by Jax's quick calculations. Drones hovered in precise formations, ready to herd and block the creatures. Ilara deployed her bioscent traps in new patterns, designed not just to guide, but to confuse the approaching threat. The first wave of the creatures reached the outer barriers. They tested the defenses, striking with precision and retreating when blocked. Jax noticed patterns in their movement, subtle shifts that indicated learning and adaptation. He adjusted the energy barriers in real time, predicting their next moves and closing paths before the creatures could exploit them. Ilara worked alongside him, releasing bursts of glowing scent in exact sequences, forcing the creatures to change direction repeatedly. The combination of human strategy and alien biology proved effective, slowing the creatures' advance and buying time for the colony's residents to reinforce buildings and evacuate vulnerable areas. But the creatures were relentless. Each time Jax and Ilara closed a path, they adapted, finding new routes, testing weaknesses. The humans realized that brute force alone would not suffice. They needed creativity, speed, and a willingness to take risks. Jax looked at his team, determination in his eyes. "This is our moment," he said. "Humans survive by thinking differently. Improvise, adapt, and never give up." Using the colony's vertical architecture, Jax devised a daring plan. Humans would create elevated pathways and traps to guide the creatures into controlled zones high above the ground. Drones would push the creatures upward, while energy nets and alien force fields would contain them before they could reach the city center. The plan was risky. One mistake could allow the creatures to break through and destroy the colony. But humans thrive under pressure, and Jax's calm leadership inspired confidence. Teams worked in unison, moving quickly to set up the vertical traps and barriers. Ilara synchronized the bioscent pulses to lead the creatures exactly where needed. As the creatures advanced, chaos erupted on the streets below. Residents ran for cover, and humans and aliens coordinated rescue efforts. Jax sprinted through the plaza, directing drones and barriers while issuing real-time commands. His training as a knight, though not traditional for this type of warfare, gave him the courage and discipline to act decisively. The creatures began to climb the traps, confused by the vertical layout and the scent pulses. They struggled against the barriers and were guided into containment zones above the city. Jax and his team adjusted constantly, reacting to every movement, every shift in their behavior. Hours passed in a tense, high-stakes battle. Sweat ran down Jax's face. His muscles ached, but he did not falter. Humans and aliens worked seamlessly, inspired by his determination. The creatures, no matter how clever, could not overcome the combined ingenuity and courage of the defenders. Finally, the last wave of creatures was guided into containment. The city was battered, but the threat was neutralized. Jax and Ilara stood together on a rooftop, watching as the energy fields held the creatures securely. The colony had survived, not through brute force, but through intelligence, creativity, and teamwork. Alara smiled at him, pride shining in her eyes. You did it. Humans really can think differently. And lead. Jax laughed softly, exhaustion and relief mixing in his voice. It's not just me. Humans survive because we adapt, because we work together, because we never give up. And now the colony knows it too. The colony leaders approached, offering thanks and congratulations. Humans were no longer seen as outsiders or newcomers. They were respected contributors, leaders whose ingenuity and courage had saved countless lives. But Jax knew that survival was only the beginning. The creatures had been contained, but they had not been understood. Why had they attacked? Were there more out there? The galaxy was vast, and threats could appear anywhere. Humans needed to be ready, not just for survival, but to prove their worth in every challenge. Alara placed a warm, glowing egg in his hand. You earned this, she said, her tone teasing but sincere. Not bad for a knight who once struggled to catch a mouse. Jax smiled, savoring the warmth. Some knight I am, he muttered. But maybe, just maybe, humans have a chance in this galaxy. Alara laughed. A chance? You've proven more than that. You've shown that humans can inspire, lead, and protect. That's more than just a chance. That's a beginning. Jax looked over the city, the lights flickering as the evening approached. The colony had survived, and humans had proven their ingenuity, courage, and determination. Somewhere in the distance, stars twinkled faintly, hinting at countless possibilities and challenges ahead. He knew this was just the start. The galaxy was full of unknowns, but humans were ready. They had adapted, survived, and led, showing that heart, intelligence, and teamwork were as powerful as any weapon. As night fell, the colony celebrated quietly, repairing damage and sharing stories of courage. Jax and Alara watched from above, a sense of pride and hope filling them. Humans had arrived on Astra Prime not just to survive, but to thrive. And somewhere deep inside, Jax realized a truth he had known but never felt so strongly. Humans were not just participants in the galaxy. They were makers, leaders, and heroes. He looked at Alara, her soft smile reflecting the city lights. Some knight I am, he said, but maybe humans are more than just knights. Maybe we're legends in the making. Alara laughed, nudging him gently. Legends. I like the sound of that. Together, they turned back toward the city, ready for whatever the galaxy would throw at them next. Humans had faced darkness, adapted, and shone brighter than ever. Astra Prime would never forget it. The stars above sparkled with promise, and Jax knew that humanity's journey was only beginning. Astra Prime stood calmer than it had in many days. The lights of the colony glowed warmly against the dark sky. And the residents finally breathed without fear. The creatures were contained, repairs were underway, and life was slowly returning to normal. But beneath this calm, something else was beginning. Something greater than survival. It was the rise of trust, unity, and hope. Jax woke early, long before sunrise. He walked through the silent streets, still half damaged from the battle. He touched the walls gently, feeling pride in how humans and aliens had stood together. A soft breeze brushed past him, carrying the scent of fresh stone dust and new beginnings. He paused at the central plaza where workers repaired broken tiles. Alara soon joined him, her steps light and confident. You're awake early, she said. Couldn't sleep, Jax replied with a grin. Too much on my mind. Alara tilted her head. Worried? Jax shook his head. Hopeful. Alara smiled. That's good. The council has called a gathering. They want you there. For what? He asked. You'll see. Come on. The gathering. The council chamber was full when Jax arrived. Humans and aliens filled the room, their faces bright with gratitude and respect. The leaders stood at the front, waiting for him. Counselor Myron spoke first. Jax of Earth, your leadership saved Astra Prime. Your courage guided both humans and aliens. Your mind helped us adapt, and your heart kept us united. Jax shifted, embarrassed but proud. Myron continued. You are more than a fighter. You are a symbol, and today we honor you for your bravery. He stepped aside as the doors opened again. A procession of alien artisans entered, carrying a glowing metal chest. They placed it gently before Jax. Inside lay armor, sleek, shining, beautifully crafted. It was a blend of alien metal and human design, part science, part tradition, part Astra Prime, part Earth. Ilara whispered, "This is the celestial knight armor. It's given only to those who prove themselves protectors of the colony." Jax took a deep breath, touched by the gesture. Counselor Myron raised a ceremonial staff. Jax of Earth, kneel. He knelt. By the authority of Astra Prime, we name you Knight of Two Worlds, a defender who unites species through courage, wisdom, and heart. The room filled with applause, cheers, and glowing lights. Jax rose slowly, the new armor warm against his skin. For a moment he felt light, almost weightless, as if the entire galaxy had opened before him. Ilara looked at him proudly. "Some knight you are," she teased gently, echoing her first joke. Jax laughed. "Yeah, terrible at catching mice, but not so bad at this." Signs of a new threat. Hours later, after celebrations died down, Jax walked to the outer balcony of the colony. Below him, workers repaired the containment fields that held the creatures. Everything seemed calm. But calm never lasted long on Astra Prime. A faint tremor shook the ground. Lights flickered across the containment dome. Ilara rushed to Jax's side, her face tense. "The creatures, they're awake again." Jax frowned. "I thought they were resting." "They were, but something is triggering them, something outside." Before they could speak further, alarms echoed through the city. Monitors displayed strange pulses of energy beyond the colony borders. The patterns were unlike anything seen before. Too organized, too rhythmic. Jax's eyes narrowed. "Something is calling them," Ilara nodded. "We need to investigate." The expedition Jax assembled a mixed team. Humans, aliens, and hybrid technicians. Together they traveled to the outskirts of Astra Prime, wearing protective suits and carrying scanning equipment. The land outside the city was wild and untouched, full of glowing plants and floating particles. The deeper they traveled, the stronger the pulses became. Finally, they reached a valley carved out by nature but now filled with strange metallic objects buried in the ground. One technician bent down. These are not natural." Ilara scanned the ground. "They are emitters, very old. They send a signal that affects the creatures' minds." Jax stared at the valley. "Are they weapons?" "Possibly," Ilara said, "or a control system, but they're waking up again." Suddenly, the ground cracked. A large device rose slowly from the soil, glowing with ancient energy. The pulses intensified, making the creatures in containment restless. Jax reacted fast. "Turn it off, now!" Technicians rushed to the device, opening panels and trying to disable it. The ground shook harder. A hum filled the air, turning into a roar. "Jax!" Ilara shouted, pointing. A bright wave of energy shot upward toward the sky, creating a signal that could travel across planets. Jax understood immediately. It's not just waking the creatures. It's sending a message. "To who?" a technician whispered. Jax's jaw tightened. "To whoever made them." They had just triggered something bigger. Something ancient and possibly dangerous. The decision. Back in Astra Prime, the council met again, this time with fear in their eyes. They had survived the swarm. They had survived the larger creatures. But this was different. This was a message to the unknown. "We cannot hide," Jax said firmly. "Whoever created those devices, they'll come. We must prepare." Counselor Mirren nodded. "You are now our knight. What do you suggest?" Jax breathed deeply. His mind raced, but his purpose was clear. "Humans survive because we adapt," he said. "So we must unite every species on this colony. Humans, aliens, hybrids, all of us must train together, build together, learn together." Elara added, "We combine our sciences, our strengths, our technologies. We stand as one." The council agreed. A message was sent across the colony. Prepare for unity. Prepare for defense. Prepare for a future we choose, not one forced upon us. A new order. Over the next several days, the colony changed. Humans trained with alien soldiers, practicing strategies inspired by Jax's quick-thinking methods. Engineers fused human tools with alien energy sources. Bioscientists worked with drone pilots to create new guidance systems. Buildings were reinforced with hybrid materials. New defense towers rose around the colony. Drones patrolled the skies in coordinated patterns. Jax led every step, not as a ruler, but as a guide. He listened, adapted, encouraged, and inspired. Every species respected him, not because of his armor, but because of his heart. Elara stood beside him always, helping him understand alien culture and design. Together they became symbols of unity. Night after night, the sky flickered with distant movements, as if something far away had heard the valley's call and was beginning to move. But Astra Prime no longer felt afraid. It felt ready. The Knight's Promise. On the 7th night after the discovery of the devices, the colony gathered under the stars. Jax stood before them, his celestial knight armor glowing faintly. He raised his voice. "We have faced darkness before, and we will face it again. But humans do not run. We think, we adapt, we rise, and with our friends at our side, we will meet anything that comes our way." Elara stepped beside him. "We are not separate species anymore. We are one colony, one family, one future." The crowd cheered, their voices echoing across Astra Prime. Jax looked up at the stars, wondering what ancient makers might be watching, wondering what challenges lay ahead. But he did not fear them. He welcomed them. He placed a hand over his heart. "I promise this. As long as I live, I will protect Astra Prime. I will protect our unity. I will protect our hope." Elara handed him a small, warm jar containing a glowing egg, another symbol of her trust. She smiled. "For a knight who once couldn't catch a mouse, you have become something truly legendary." Jax laughed softly. "Maybe. But legends are not born alone. They're made together." A new beginning. As dawn broke over Astra Prime, golden light spilled across the colony. Workers, soldiers, families, and children looked up at the sky with new determination. Jax stood on the highest tower, Elara beside him, watching the first sunbeam touch the horizon. Whatever was coming, whatever ancient force might arrive, they would face it, together. The galaxy was big, but humanity had proven something powerful. Humans don't just survive. Humans rise. Humans lead. Humans inspire. And now, with Jax as the Knight of Two Worlds, the colony was ready for every future challenge. Astra Prime's story was no longer about danger. It was about hope. And this was only the beginning.